Welcome to Destination Marriage, a podcast about successfully navigating the winding roads of marriage. Whether you're newlyweds, engaged, looking to get married, or have been married for years, we want to share with you how we have navigated those winding roads over the past 19 years in our marriage.
Join us on this journey as we talk about real-life experiences in a marriage and what we have learned along the way. We discuss love, travel, fitness, raising kids, friendships, and much more, all from the perspective of our lives together.
Happiness, love, grace, passion are some of the things we all strive for in a marriage, and we invite you to take this journey with us.
Welcome to Destination Marriage.
Welcome to episode 18 of Destination Marriage. I'm Jackie.
And I'm Tommy.
And we're thrilled to have you join us on this journey today.
Yes, we are. So today we are continuing in our Destination Growth series by discussing the book Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance by author, what'd you say?
I like it.
Oh, by author Dr. Angela Duckworth. Dr. Duckworth is a professor of psychology at UPENN and also the founder and CEO of Character Lab. Much of her professional focus is on using scientific insights to help children thrive. However, in her best-selling book, Grit, the insights go far beyond just helping children become grittier. It really is written for anyone and everyone that really just wants to understand how to become gritty, how to have passion and perseverance, and the not just how to, but the importance of, right? And that's really, I think, she spends a lot of time selling it, if you will, the why, why it's important, and because it lends to a lot of better outcomes and all sorts of measures, whether you're a child or an adult, right?
Yeah,
so
it's never too late, I guess, right?
Yeah, and what's interesting is so I had actually heard of this book. I know it's been around for a long time, and it's a really, really popular book. I had heard of it when I was listening to Freakonomics podcast. Shameless plug for them.
Yeah, I didn't know. Really enjoy them.
I do. It's really good. I didn't realize that they were one of the first podcasts to actually kind of go commercial and really make like a business out of a podcast.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
You actually had told me that. I wasn't aware.
So if we could get some of their like 4 million per week subscribers, we'll take it. But no, it's a really good one. So she's been on there. She's actually really good friends with the Freakonomics host. I forget his name off the top of my head, but so I listened. There's actually a really good episode on how to become grittier. Nice. And now they have like a spinoff podcast that they do, which is pretty good. But I like her life story, and she explains a lot about who she is and how her kind of upbringing has kind of created who she is, and I really enjoyed the book.
Yeah, actually, I had heard about it probably a couple of years ago, and it was through work. I was working for a client, and long story short, basically the person I was working with on that particular project had shared the book with me.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I didn't read it at that time, but they told me that they loved this book, and they were telling me about the book and why they loved it and how they applied it to their life personally at that time. I think she was fresh out of college and kind of starting her career path, and just talking about applying grit to her life as she's kind of finding her way, as a young adult. But now that I'm reading it myself, obviously grit can be applied, in different areas of our life. So what is the definition of grit as defined by Dr. Duckworth? Grit is defined as the tendency to sustain interest in and an effort toward very long-term goals.
Right. Kind of that ability to do that, right?
Yeah. And, obviously I don't think that's something that comes natural to everyone. You have to make a conscious effort. And it's a fantastic book to kind of break that down. So,
which is why that's really kind of like as a 41-year-old, like it gives me hope to become grittier. That
it's like, not
that's
too late.
Yeah.
You
it's not like,
it.
You're born with it and you either have it or you don't. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
well, the book is broken up into 3 parts.
Right.
So part 1 is what grit is and why it matters. Number 2, grit is growing grit from the inside out. And then part 3 is growing grit from the outside in.
Yeah, I like that. I like that approach. It's like, how do you do it yourself? And then how do you have outside influences to help you?
Right.
Yeah, I really like that.
Which I think everyone needs, some outside influences
Yeah.
or support
Sure.
to a certain extent. So we both took the grit scale, and it's actually a really, easy, quick test that you can take, and we'll definitely share it on our Instagram, share the link, so you can definitely do this at home with your spouse and see where you guys line up on the grit scale. But I took mine.
I took mine.
Yeah. So
What'd you score?
get?
I got a 3.6.
No, you did not.
Yeah.
That's the same score.
The same score as
I'm
you?
not joking. I got 3.6.
That's funny. It's not like one of these 100 like the Enneagram one we did where it was like 140 questions.
It took me
This was
45 minutes.
Yeah, this is like 12 questions, and then they weight it, and on her website it does it automatically. There's also like a formula to do it if you wanted to kind of just do it yourself.
Yeah.
But 3.6.
Yeah,
And she
3.6
even
too.
recognizes in the book, she mentions like it could be, you could cheat on it if you chose to, right?
I didn't cheat.
I didn't. No.
Suggest
I
over
did not.
here?
It's we both got the exact same score, and we both suck at cheating because it's like out of 5. But her point was, if you were taking this for like a job interview and you knew that grit was one of the things they were looking for, the questions aren't that crazy hard, No,
I want it to be really honest.
Yeah, same here, because I want to use it as a baseline
Yeah.
to see if I retake it, in the future, and see if I have become grittier.
And just so everyone knows, this is out of 5. So 5.0 would actually be a perfect score.
Like
So
the grittiest person alive.
right. I don't know who that person is, but we can work towards that, right?
Yeah.
So technically, when you received your score, it should have said, like, I'm sure you saw, we're actually
Still well above average.
Yeah. So
what'd you think? Like, if I don't remember all the questions, but they were definitely one. It was a couple where I answered them honestly, and it was not about like finishing things, because I tend to finish things pretty well, but it was like after a year losing interest in something.
Okay.
That was one I remember. He was like, yeah, that kind of sounds like me.
So I don't think that one was something that was a stickler for me. Because
Okay.
I tend to, like, when I'm kind of fixated on something, like this podcast. I mean, I had talked about this a while ago, okay? Before it flourished into what it is today. But no, the one question I think that probably brought my score down, I was very honest with it, is I tend to have a lot of ideas, and as I have new ideas,
The other ones
do
just
I forget about the old ones?
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
And I do that because I'm constantly thinking of new ideas. I think that might be something that creative people probably struggle with. I don't know.
Could be, yeah. Right. I mean, if those different ideas are like completely different topics or different things, not maybe like ideas within the same field or within the same job or something like that, that could
Right, but
be
if you're
different.
Always creating something new, and you need to constantly have, like, for someone who's constantly creating fresh content, or maybe even an artist, I don't know, somebody who's constantly creating, maybe music or whatever it may be, you can't get fixated on maybe what you were creating before. Obviously, you want to complete that. But yeah, I tend to have new, fresh ideas. Yeah, to the point where I'm just going to share this with everybody, because a few people that I have told, they really get a hoot out of this. Tommy bought me a dictaphone, okay?
I did.
Because he was like my walking dictaphone. I would come to him every 2 minutes with a new, fresh idea. And he's like, you know what? Let's get you something so you can keep all these ideas together.
Because I used to tell you, write it down, babe. Write it down. It's a good idea. Write it down.
I was hoping you would kind of hold all of those things in your mental filing cabinet.
Not that smart.
So he got me a dictaphone. Hey, I like it. It's old school, but...
And how many times have you used it?
I have some ideas saved on
you
there.
You do?
Yes.
You didn't
Go
tell me
listen to
that.
some of my desk
Hey,
downstairs.
all right.
Yeah.
$30 well spent.
It's much smaller than it used to be.
Yeah, there's
Remember
no
the
tape.
old dictaphones?
It's all like digital. It's pretty slick.
Yeah, it's pretty tiny. You can take it anywhere. So if you see me in the grocery store, like just talking into that's my dictaphone.
Oh man, then my joke doesn't work anymore.
Oh, what were you gonna say?
Well, if you hadn't used the dictaphone to write the sentence, I was gonna to tell you the joke about how I bought this book on procrastination and still haven't read it yet.
No, the joke still works.
It's not as clever.
Bum.
All right.
Dad joke.
Oh man, I've got a bunch of them.
Keep them coming.
So for today, what we thought we could do is not just talk about the book and just kind of go on and on about the different topics, but apply it kind of in 3 areas of our lives. So kind of what are our takeaways for ourselves personally, for our children as a parents, and then for our marriage. So, baby, why don't you kick it off? What were your kind of biggest key personal takeaways?
Personal takeaways, and obviously there's a lot of meat and potatoes in the book. So
Sure.
I think these are just things that jumped out at me. The first thing that I thought that would really apply to me was showing up. If you show up and put in the work, that can really close the gap between, myself or the other individual, as far as having a natural ability, a talent, versus the determined individual. I think I am a very determined individual. There are a lot of things that I've kind of dipped my toe in the water and I really didn't know how to swim per se. I didn't really know. It was uncharted waters. But then there's other things in my life, if I'm being completely honest, that maybe I've wanted to do and I've shied away from because I thought I don't really have that experience, or I don't have that talent, or I don't have that support system. And so I've just completely shied away from it, even though there was, a seed planted in me that made me feel like, oh, I think I really could do that. But then I thought, oh, but this person says thriving, they have all these things in their tool belt already, and look how far behind I am. So I don't know. That was probably my number one thing. I also wanted to say that one of my big takeaways was the fact that she talks about purpose. And for me, purpose drives my motivation in probably everything that I do. I don't like the whole mundane of, oh, my job is my job, or just trying to get through the day. And I mean, that just seems so defeating. And she actually gives a really good parable in the book about it. And when she talks about a bricklayer. Yeah. And
that's really good.
I really liked it. So she says, there's 3 bricklayers, and the first bricklayer says, or is laying bricks. The second bricklayer says he is building a church. And then the third says he's building the house of God. So if we think about each and every one of those, laying bricks, basically, he's looking at the task as strictly a job. And the individual that's saying he's building a church, that's his career. But then the last is building the house of God, which is his calling. And she did mention that, it's very minute number of people. That pool's pretty small of the individuals that right now, today, on a daily basis are doing something that is truly their calling.
Yeah.
So if I think about myself and the things that I'm doing right now, day in and day out, I wouldn't say my career or the things that I do to provide that I do Monday through Friday, that right there is my calling. But I will say this, I do think it's leading me to my calling.
Yeah.
I think it's giving me the bricks that I need to build what my calling is.
Right. I completely agree with that.
But if you did, and I feel like if anyone felt as though they're the first bricklayer, that's his job and it's mundane, it's time to make a move, to change something in your life.
Yeah.
Because you're wasting away. But those were my big 3 takeaways. I really loved that parable.
Yeah, that was great. All right,
like
so my turn. The few things I wrote down, like 6 here or 5. Number 1, talent doesn't make you gritty. Just having talent doesn't make you gritty. Certainly the people that have the most natural talent and are the grittiest are
rock stars.
Are the rock stars, right, of this world, and whatever. That's I didn't write this down, but one of the things I appreciate about the book is, I'm an athlete, I'm an ex-athlete, I tend to think in those terms a lot. And so a lot of times when it's these types of discussions, it's about sports. And she certainly talks a lot about sports or the military, but she talks about how this applies to anything and everything. It doesn't matter what the topic is or your career path or your, whatever endeavor it is. And she has studied and not just talks about it, but she's studied people across the spectrum of jobs, whether it's a violinist or an athlete or a military officer or a 3-year-old or a musician. Yeah. Or an artist or anything. There's so many different things that are comedian. She even talks about the point is are you, how do you become gritty and how do you stay, get grittier as you evolve and grow? I love the idea of a growth mindset. That's not new. It's not really a new topic to me, but I'm really trying to focus on that as I kind of reach this, 41's kind of a,
41's the new 21.
But it's not, we're not young. We can't say we
speak for yourself, mister.
But no, you know what I mean. Come on. We're not 15 with, without any responsibilities, and we can just kind of see what we want to do and
wherever the wind takes
yeah,
me. Yeah, I get it.
So, but I love that idea of a growth mindset. Like if you're not growing, you're dying kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And perseverance comes through failure if you believe that failure isn't a permanent state. I love that. So if you think that every time you fail, oh, it's just, here we go again, I'm just failing, that you believe that it's like a permanent state of your
terrible.
life. Well, I mean, but the idea that perseverance comes through that failure, that's really something I'm taking. I was talking to our oldest son about that just the other day. We were talking about that. I think it's important to understand that everybody fails.
Right.
It's important to build perseverance through that. Mm-hmm. This is another one that was kind of interesting. That purpose and passion can evolve as you become proficient or an expert in something that maybe you didn't start out thinking it was going to be your purpose.
Okay.
Right. And so like, as you become better and better at it, you become, through deliberate practice or just time, that becomes more and more your purpose and your calling. It kind of evolves into your calling, which I thought was kind of an interesting take.
Right.
What do you think about that?
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think that there's something to be said about when you fine tune a skill, that you can become and feel more passionate about something once you have that security where you feel like, okay, I know what I'm doing. When you have those failures, that can be discouraging. And I think a lot of people, when they have those failures, they feel like, this isn't my purpose. Maybe I'm not meant to do this. I can't get it right. So I think.
Which comes if you just give up on things before you really become proficient at it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that means you don't have grit.
That's right. Not a 3.6. And then I really like that they showed in the different studies that while you have certain personality traits, your personality is not something you're born with, and that's the end of it, which I thought was interesting. Kind of talking about how the brain has, you can create new neural pathways. You can, it has plasticity, meaning it can grow, it can change with the right types of behaviors. Right. Which again, kind of goes to at 41, that's really exciting to know that, with combined with growth mindset, like I can learn anything. I can do anything even at my age right now. Obviously there's limitations and realities, but the point is, it's not because of something that is set in stone. Yeah. Within my own brain. And so that's exciting to me.
I like it.
Yeah. All right. Second is
parenting.
For parenting.
Yeah.
Baby, what are your key takeaways here?
So for parenting, I was thinking, gosh, how do we teach grit as parents? How do you actually teach grit? And, while I think this is a really great book that even young adults or even teenagers can read, this is something, and I think these are things that you need to probably start teaching them even at an earlier age. If you're able to do it, gosh, it would have been fantastic if maybe our parents, if this book had been available and we would have learned this as kids, how much further along would we be in life? So how do we teach grit as parents? And, they were talking about, or she was talking about the supporting approach versus the demanding approach. So if we think about the parent who says to their child or to their children, you will be involved in 3 extracurricular activities. You will learn how to play piano, violin, guitar, and you will, you will not leave the house unless you have straight A's. Like if they get an A-, they lose all of their privileges. And those are demands that you're putting on the child, versus a supporting approach would be, obviously you're encouraging your child to strive for the best, right? But you're also kind of paying attention to what their needs are, not necessarily holding them to what maybe you're living vicariously through them, but you're not necessarily putting those demands on them to complete a certain task with extracurricular activities, or, maybe, taking up an instrument. I think creating the right environment for your children to flourish is really important. I would say if I'm looking at both approaches, and probably more the supporting approach, But she also does give an example of how the demanding approach can be a positive one.
Well, she kind of refers to it, and I have it written
balance.
down, as authoritative versus authoritarian. And when I first heard her, and when I was, listening to the book, I was listening to it on Audible. That's the first word that popped in my head. When she said authoritative, I went straight to authoritarian.
Yeah.
Because who says the word authoritative? Like you hear the word authoritarian more often, which is more of like the demanding, no, like very strict rules, high demands with no support.
Yeah.
But authoritative is that. It's that you have those high demands, but you're also supportive, and you also teach them, and you also love them, and you care for them. But they know that there are demands, that there are
not even
expectations.
demands, there's expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously you need to set the tone of what is acceptable.
It's really hard to balance, isn't it?
I think it's really hard to balance, and I want to give you an example though. This will make you laugh. I don't think you know the story. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure you're hearing this for the first time. So she actually talks about extracurricular activities and how when we put our kids, let's say, in sports, obviously we have boys, so they've played soccer over the years, basketball, baseball. Well, for me, it was ballet, and my parents had put me in ballet, and my mom was unable to attend my recital that day. It was like midday. I was probably, 5 or 6. So my dad took me to the recital, and I did not want to get on stage. I told him I got all dressed up in my costume. I'm pretty sure it was all hot pink. I had hot pink bunny ears, super cute. I don't know why. I got all dressed up, went to the recital, and I was like, I just want to sit in the audience and watch. I'm not really feeling the whole stage situation.
Who does that remind you of?
And he said, that's okay. We'll just stay and we'll watch.
Your dad just let you sit on his lap and watch the whole time?
So, although I think later in life he would have absolutely taught me grit, because he had grit at that time.
You had him wrapped around your finger.
He was more about, being supportive.
I guess so. Well, we were just laughing how Dylan, our youngest, when he was 4, spent the entire his first 4-year-old soccer season sitting on your lap during every game. He wouldn't go out on the field.
He would go on the field for 2 minutes and then run back
he
to
would
my
just
lap.
run
Like,
right
I
to your
just
lap.
want to watch.
Yeah. And now he's like aggressive out on the field and having a good old time playing travel soccer. So.
Yeah. When they're little like that, I mean, obviously I was only like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But when they're older, obviously as they get older, I think there's little things that we can do to plant the right seeds, but also, like I mentioned earlier, creating the right environment. So she also talks about, tough love, you know, as they get older, and they say, Mom and Dad, I started this sport. I don't want to finish it. I don't like it anymore. I started whatever project, job, something that they're pursuing, and they just throw their hands up. What approach do you think is the best approach?
Well, I have to admit, this is something that for me, it was mostly sports growing up. If there wasn't a lot of outside activity, I mean, other than sports, I did like 7th, 8th grade play, but I really enjoyed that. So Midsummer Night's Dream.
That. I remember.
Yeah.
Because when we first started dating, you
I
made
had
me
the
watch
video
it.
of it. It was pretty good.
You brought it over. You made me watch it.
Made you watch it? Jeez.
No, you were like, we need to watch my play. I remember.
So beyond that, like mostly it was sports, and we did. My dad, I'll give him credit for that. Mm-hmm. There was, if you signed up and you started the season, there was no not finishing it. Like you were finishing it.
You finished the season.
Now I can't really remember if I ever tried to quit in the middle of a season, because I always enjoyed the sports. But
did you ever try an instrument?
No, never
Okay.
did. My dad always talked about making that one of the things for us to do, but I guess we were so busy with sports. It was year round. Sometimes I was playing 2 teams at the same time. Mm-hmm. But that was one of my takeaways. Is I really like her idea of her house rule is like, if you sign up for a hobby or an art, something artistic or musical or sports or dance, whatever, you're doing it for a year. Mm-hmm. Or for whatever that season is that you're paid for. There's no quitting in the middle of that. And I really like that. I really think that's important.
What is it? There's no quitters, and what is it? Is it baseball? What's that saying? There's no quitting, and
well, there's no quitting in baseball. Oh, what's a movie? Oh,
it's
man,
a movie.
It's killing me.
Yeah, there's a line in a movie. I feel like you used to say it all the time.
It's from
too.
Well, there's a scene in Bull Durham where he gets all mad. The manager does.
Yeah.
what is he? There's no lollygaggers. You lollygag around the
so
infield. You
lollygagger.
What does that
That's
make you
great.
guys? Lollygaggers. It's a great movie for baseball fans.
Just a little rabbit hole.
Oh,
we
you know
went
what
down,
it
sorry.
is? You know what? League of Their Own. Tom Hanks. He's like, there's no crying in baseball.
Oh, crying. That's
Yeah,
what it was.
there's no crying in
No
baseball.
crying in baseball. I thought it was a baseball thing. Okay. Anyway,
See, pretty
But
much all of
I
life's
thought it was quitting.
all of life's, lessons can be taught and learned on the baseball diamond. I'm just saying.
Oh, okay. Maybe we'll record from the baseball diamond one day.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Who knows?
It'd be weird, but
It would be kind of weird. So do you offer an example of grit to your children? She talks about, will your children want to emulate you? And I think that's a fantastic way if you're thinking about how to teach your children grit. First of all, it's going to make you reflect on whether, just like we're doing
well,
today.
I think she focused more on the fact that they're going to emulate you.
Either way.
Yes.
But
So
that's what
yeah,
I'm saying.
yeah.
But if you know that you want your children to be gritty, right?
You
Then
have
we
to-
need to make sure that we are like we are today, reflecting on, okay, are we, as mom and dad, are we gritty ourselves,
Yeah.
in our everyday life and the things that we're pursuing, the things that they're watching us do day in and day out? Do they see grittiness in both of us?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because they will naturally, have you ever heard, like, I don't know if have your parents ever said, learn from my mistakes?
Or do as I say, not as I do.
No, I never was told that one, but learn from my mistakes. And that's the opposite. I'm sure you learn from the mistakes.
I hate that saying because it's like it's a throwaway, like, yes, I understand what the point of that is, but it's so much better to sit down with your child and be like, look, here's what I did. It was stupid. I made this mistake.
Right.
Here's what I did wrong. Here's how I do it differently. That is, some version of that conversation needs to happen, not just like, well, I'm an idiot, so learn from all the things I did wrong and don't do that.
Yeah,
Like, come on.
I don't think you're going to teach grit that way.
Yeah,
But I
or
think by
common
leading
sense.
by example.
Yeah.
Leading by example. What?
No, I just think it's like a cop out. Like,
Well, I feel like
I've got a parent. Just learn from my mistakes.
Yeah.
All right, Daddy's got to go to the bar. Like what? Like,
I think I've heard it so many times. Yeah.
Mommy be back.
Yeah.
No, Chris Rock joke.
I don't know that one.
Yeah. Well.
Dad jokes.
That was a Chris Rock joke. That was a
Sorry.
funny ass. Yeah. Anyways. Well, that was the one where it was like, remember the dad was like, well, I don't beat my kids. He's like, well, you're not supposed to beat your kids. He's like, I feed my kids. He's like, you're supposed to feed your
them.
kids. Oh, man. So some of my takeaways, I kind of jumped in. Sorry, I jumped in on your,
okay.
because
Go
we
ahead.
shared some of them, but
We are one. Go ahead.
indeed, we already talked about the at least a year. I really like that. That was something that, we tried to start with our older son when he was in high school, because they had so many, he had switched schools. So he had so many different opportunities. The school was much larger and they had a lot of
Yeah.
different clubs. And we really didn't push it as much as we should have.
Well, we didn't push, not sports. He was still in sports, but
No,
clubs,
the other
like-
activities, the other extracurriculars, and he
Like
actually
yearbook
and he
or-
regrets that.
Yeah.
He even told us now that he's and I think he was honestly
Overwhelmed.
he was.
He went from a really small school to a really big school. Don't
There,
you think that's
there
a
you
little
go.
overwhelming?
That's the supportive parent
I'm
coming
creating
out.
I'm creating a healthy environment over here
No, honestly, that
for
is
my children to flourish.
that's a scenario where you didn't support me to push him to
I
do
don't
an
remember
activity.
having that conversation. I don't
We
recall.
did. You don't recall.
I think we may have said it in passing, but I don't think we had
no.
like a,
It was. We both should have pushed him,
Mm-hmm.
but I think he was giving us a lot of pushback on it, and we
Mm-hmm.
kind of dropped it, because he was playing sports. He did have his friends, and he was hanging. It wasn't just like he was sitting around on his bed all day. I mean, he
No,
was busy,
he was really
but
into
we
sports.
knew that for him having more social engagement and more different kind of outlets
Mm-hmm.
probably would have been healthy for him. And he recognizes that now as he's gotten older and he's more mature. He's like, man, there was so
activities
many
he could've-
things
yeah.
I could have done. And I
Been
feel that
involved in.
same way about college. Now I was busy obviously with baseball. That was 50 hours a week. I added it up. I was like, geez, I got like a full-time job, just with baseball.
Yeah.
And then you add in travel. But I was at this world-class school and it was baseball, partying, and school. That was it. Like
You committed to all of those.
I
Partying.
committed pretty well to all three. Well, schooling after the last
That
couple
took
years.
grit. That took grit.
To party every Thursday, Friday,
mean-
Saturday night. Yeah, I suppose.
Actually, I don't think that was a long-term goal, though.
No,
A little sh-
it was a
little short term there.
1.5 years of goal. No, my point is, like, I regret that there were so many outlets and so many learning opportunities, you know, that of just all sorts of different avenues that I just didn't even explore. Didn't even think to do that. It was just so siloed into, you know, what I was doing. So
If you could go back, though,
yeah.
if you could go back, what would you? What
At
would you be
school or
involved
just in life?
No, at school.
Just exploring some of the artistic stuff. You know, there was a whole theater and the artistic. They had all these traveling, you know, art types of exhibits that would come through, or outside lecturers and world-class speakers and people that would come to the school. And
Yeah.
I just never went, you know. Now it was,
What? I mean, what other arts, though?
I don't know. I'm just making a point. Like,
okay.
I'm
just curious.
I just regret not doing it. Similar to
Yeah.
how our older son has said he kind of regrets not doing any of that stuff either. That's
Yeah.
all. That's all. But I like that, and you know, that our younger son is more involved. He's in soccer and band, and I think we're gonna probably be a little bit more assertive with kind of being more demanding there.
Yeah, I really want him to get involved in yearbook. Yearbook
You
was
and
a
yearbook.
blast. I love yearbook. Yearbook was so much fun.
My big thing is that they stay busy and they stay active and explore and then commit to it.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. With that kind of mentality that she has, that she proposes in the book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
You know, I think that another key takeaway there is how important it is to have outside influence, and that kind of talks about the outside in.
Yeah,
And you know, we are their parents, so being seen as a parent, there can be some conflict there. You know, if they're pushing back on demands or such
mean?
things. Well, she references how important a coach is because they're seen, they can be more demanding. You know, whether it's a coach or a teacher, they can have kind of that same influence you're trying to foster yourself, but it's coming from a different person
right.
who they just tend to respect more as far as that authoritative type of figure.
They look to for that instruction. And,
Yeah,
right.
and not just that, but the other thing that was a takeaway for that was the importance of the right coach.
Yeah,
And how that was one of those factors that actually really made a significant difference. And she referenced a lot of the swimmers. But, you know, I was lucky enough to have, some really, really good coaches and some like really poor coaches. And it's a stark difference. Not just because they're a coach doesn't mean that, you know, it's the same. And I think that goes for anything, whether it's dance, music, art, you know,
Yeah.
find that right coach too, not just any coach.
yeah. But you played for a really long time, so you did have a lot. You had a lot of different coaches and different areas of your life, so you have a good comparison. You know, I wasn't in dance long enough to really say if I had a great dance instructor. But
But I think as
if
parents, you want to kind of, you know, keep an eye out on who those people are and try to get them in the right.
Right.
But I think the biggest takeaway, honestly, and it all ties together with as far as the parenting for me and for my own life and for our marriage and for everything, is when they looked at all these different studies, longitudinal, meaning like over the course of years, all these variables and multiple studies and from different authors, the biggest takeaway and the biggest, like the single most important thing was that was like a factor or like a variable they could look at as to where people were going to be successful was their ability to follow through.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's huge.
Well, one of the other things I wanted to touch on real quick, just to kind of add to that point,
Yeah.
is when you had mentioned about, you know, having that outside help to foster grit. Not everyone is coming from, you know, home where they have maybe both parents or parents, and she gives a few examples, and there's a really great success story of an individual, a young man who unfortunately didn't have both parents at home, and I think he was raised by a grandparent, and at the time his grandparents...
He had no parents at home.
He had no parents. Okay.
Dad his dad was never around. His mom was institutionalized.
Oh, she was okay.
Yeah.
And the grandmother raised him, and
But she got sick really quick.
Well,
yeah.
she was elderly. She
Yeah.
got sick, and so he ended up having to kind of take on that role as an adult. You know, pretty quickly he was pushed into adulthood, but he did very well academically.
Well, he had a brother.
He did. He had a brother
that kind of lit a fire. An older brother, much older
that
brother.
didn't live with him though.
Right, much older brother out of the house. Yeah.
Yeah. But he told his brother that he wanted to go to Princeton, and he said, I don't think that would ever happen for me. And his brother, really gave him some words of encouragement.
Yeah.
And really, help foster that grit in him so he would continue to pursue it, because he was doing very well in school. But when you're coming from, a position where you feel like I said earlier, sometimes I'll maybe refrain from pursuing something because I think, maybe I don't have this or don't have that.
Yeah.
He had that
you
grit.
do, and we talk about it a lot,
Mm-hmm. And I recognize it.
Yeah,
I do recognize
because
that.
you have so much talent and so much, skill in so many areas. It frustrates me when, you kind of hang that hat on, well, I just don't have the support or the ability or I don't have the background or the whatever, and I'm like, babe, you've got it.
I'm trying to break free from that. But I thought
it's hard. It's hard. It's something that.
It was really inspiring though, just to hear how he was able to kind of overcome all of that adversity. And then, wow,
he
went to MIT.
MIT,
he was extremely brilliant. And then to top it off, that makes the story even better. He ended up having a family that really took him in as part of theirs and loved him, and he was part of their Christmas and Thanksgiving and everything. And
the first time you ever got presents.
Was until he actually went to college, and that family supported him and was there even when his grandma passed. I mean, it worked out, but he had to remain gritty, to stay on that path, because while he was working up to that, he kind of had a lot of obstacles, a lot of things that were up against him. So I don't know. Absolutely. I like all the examples because everyone's obviously coming from a different position on the game board or spot on the game board. That's how I look at it. I may be 5 steps behind the next person, but if you're gritty.
All right. So last topic is kind of how do we apply that to our marriage? What kind of takeaways for our marriage? And I think there's a couple that I thought about.
What's that?
I've already kind of mentioned it, but the fact that you can, if you're gritty, if you have that follow through and you're committed, and you have that passion and perseverance, that's the passion and perseverance are 2 key words in a marriage for a successful marriage. Not just well, I'm stuck with you, but I choose you, you choose me, and we're going to be gritty, and we can change the way we are for each other.
Right.
I love that. It's not just, well, I am what I am and you are who you are, and that's, we'll just have to figure it out. No, it's we can literally rewire our brains. And in the case of a marriage, it's kind of rewiring our brains to be the best mate for each other. And then the second thing is kind of more generic, but successful marriage takes a lot of grit.
Yeah.
Right.
You're not throwing in the towel just because, you hit a bump in the road.
Yeah. I thought I saw this meme, not a meme. It was it was on Facebook or something. And it really just it actually kind of made me angry that they would do this. And then it kind of they posted, this husband and wife who were getting divorced, posted this picture of her getting down on one knee and saying, "Will you divorce me?" And they did it as a joke. No, I mean, but they posted it like it was supposed to be some sort of.
Is this a meme?
No, it's a real couple that's getting divorced, and they put it on there like it's happy. It really pissed me off. But anyways, so, divorce is devastating.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it affects so many things, and to make a joke out of it just really kind of. Anyways, but marriage, a good marriage, you have to be gritty. It takes a lot of perseverance. But the other thing about it.
What's that?
Is just like we talked about earlier about how you can kind of, as time goes and you become better at your marriage, the passion grows too.
Yeah.
Right. And
well,
it kind of,
to that, I was actually going to say that sometimes passion can go through different phases in your marriage. You know, obviously there are ebbs and flows, and life throws different things that you maybe feel really passionate at one moment. And then, you know, you're up at 2:00 in the morning with baby vomit and you're not feeling that passionate at the time. We're not getting sleep. I don't know. I mean, there's certain
that's a very
things that
passionate
happen.
moment.
There are things that happen in life. You don't feel that passion for a while, but
I
the
understand.
perseverance to push through it together, you have to know that obviously it takes effort, you know, to keep moving through. I mean, like we said earlier, what grit is really moving towards a long-term goal. You know, long-term goal is to have that long-lasting marriage and build that love.
Yeah.
Continue to build on that passion. You know, what that passion was at day one will look different, you know, 10, 15,
It's
20
totally
years.
different today than it was back then.
Oh, I think it's better.
It's deeper.
Yeah.
No, it is. But it's also harder.
What?
Right? Like
How
it's,
so?
well, there's more complications. There's more variables going on around us.
That's true.
No, marriage gets harder a
Yeah.
lot of times. You know, there are harder seasons in a marriage, whether it be, like you said, the 2-year-old or the 2-month-old, you know, puking on your shoulder in the
Right.
middle of the night,
Career changes.
you know, coronavirus. Like there's all these
Yeah.
like real things that happen. And, you know, let's be honest, we're at that stage where we're entering that season potentially over the next few years where our parents are getting older and they're going to need more of us. Mm-hmm. Now we have a little bit different scenario with our kids because our older son's kind of already out of the house, but a lot of couples in our kind of mid 40s range, they go through a phase where it's like, we're getting it from both ends. Like the parents are more needy now. You can't be their kids anymore. You have to be their kind of caretakers.
Well, it's not
And
to
a
that
lot of
extent,
people.
but you're
I'm saying
providing more
I'm
support.
just saying in general,
yeah.
like couples that are in that 45-year-old range, roughly. Then they also, some of them have teenage kids that are very needy at that point.
Yeah.
You know, you've got worries from both ends, and
It's hard to feel the passion.
you're stuck in the middle because you're not getting any support from your parents because they're not really your parents anymore. They are, but you're caring for them more than they are parenting you, right? But you sure as hell need to parent your teenagers who think that they know everything.
Yeah.
So it's a tough season, you know.
Yeah.
And being gritty and persevering through that. I think is really important.
I think so too. And I think the other thing that probably would also apply when it comes to marriage, we had mentioned it earlier about the outside support. I think it's really important to have the right people around to support your marriage in the good seasons and in the bad.
Just like finding the right coach for your kids, right? Mm-hmm. Having people around you that support what your goals in marriage are.
Right. I mean, your family, your friends, the people that are around you should also be supporting a healthy marriage. And if you're going through a challenging time, you know, you should have that support system in place as well. So, but it takes grittiness, it takes perseverance. It's not something that happens overnight. And I think that if you're already a gritty person, you know, you'll probably be able to apply this easily to each and every area of your life. But obviously, since we tested 3.6, I can't believe we tied.
That's funny.
Just so bizarre. We have some work to do. But I mean, we're all
That's
a work
exciting.
in progress,
No,
right?
that's exciting. That means that we can improve. And I love the growth mindset piece of the book.
I thought you were saying peace out just now.
Yeah, peace them out. No, I love that piece of the book, the growth mindset, and grow.
Yeah.
Your mind, everything. Yeah.
This is part of our Destination Growth series. We're going to continue like we have with sharing other, you know, books that we're reading, you know, material that would definitely be beneficial to your marriage, to your growth, whether that be in parenting or just life in general. Because obviously, like I said, we're all work in progress, and Tommy and I are trying together to, even like he mentioned earlier, that we're 41. Thank you for sharing that.
I said I'm 41. You just blew that cover that you're 41. You could have said you're 34 or something.
We're still growing and we're still working towards new goals. I mean, look at this. This is a brand new project for us, and we're working and we're growing and we're learning each day. So
yeah,
hang in there with us while we work on our grit scale.
All right, guys. till the next week. We hope you guys have a fantastic week and weekend, and we will see you soon.
See you then, guys.
Bye.
Bye. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if so, please continue to listen and subscribe on Podbean, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. We would greatly appreciate positive reviews, and we will answer any questions at feedback@destinationmarriagepodcast.com. For up-to-date content and news about the podcast, you can follow us on Instagram at destination_marriage and visit our website at destinationmarriagepodcast.com. Be sure to tune in next week.